By the time you're watching this, our iPhone 16 Pro review has been live on the channel for over a week, and we've also posted a ton of behind-the-scenes content like unboxings on our TikTok. I've seen a lot of the questions come through on our videos, and disclaimer, I've already tried to answer a bunch of them in the comments, but I thought I'd go through some of the biggest ones here quickly. Just one last thing, if there's a question I don't answer or a question you still have, make sure to go to my iPhone 16 Pro review video, and there's a chance I may have already answered it. First up, I have an iPhone 10. Which iPhone should I buy? Help. Okay, so here's where I come in. If you're holding on to an iPhone 10, congratulations. You've had a phone for about 7 years, and I can't believe that it's probably hanging by a thread at this point. But there was some really cool things about it, like Face ID. It was the first with that technology. So if it's time for an upgrade, I would think about size first. The iPhone 10 had a fairly small 5.85-inch display, at least for the time. So right off the bat, in terms of size, I think you're gonna look at the iPhone 16 Pro because it has a 6.3-inch display. Now that's up from 6.1 inches on the iPhone 15 Pro. If you don't need the additional camera in terms of telephoto zoom, you might want to go for the regular iPhone 16 because you're getting a lot of the same features like an A18 chip, Apple Intelligence, and even a quasi-optical zoom with 2x with the 48 megapixel camera in a more manageable 6.1-inch size. So I think it really comes down to what size screen do you want? Overall, I would go with the iPhone 16 Pro. Why do they put colors on iPhones? A real upgrade would be making iPhones that don't need cases. Well, that would be an accomplishment. I'm not sure how Apple would make an iPhone without a color. I mean, transparent would be really cool. But when it comes to the durability factor, I do think you have a point. It doesn't seem like we've made great strides when it comes to the toughness of iPhones. Apple says that the ceramic shield display is 50% stronger than previous iPhones, but based on the drop test that we've seen, it's just as susceptible to damage, so you are gonna need a case. But when it comes to the colors, I definitely hear you. I feel like desert titanium is not very exciting. We may have seen this a few years ago with the iPhone 11 or something very close. If you want something that's truly dramatic and interesting, I would go with, like, let's say the iPhone 16 and ultramarine. Next question, if I buy a silicone case, will the camera button still work, or is it sensitive enough? All right, well, the good news is that I have the iPhone 16 Plus right here, and the capacitive button works perfectly directly through the case, so I can use it in landscape mode or portrait mode and it works just fine. But this is the official case from Apple. I'm not sure how well third-party cases are going to work, so we're gonna have to see. Here's another one. Please do a side-by-side comparison of the iPhone 15 Pro versus iPhone 16 Pro. The screen size difference is very intriguing to me. No one has a video of this after many searches. So, well, your search is over. We have the iPhone 15 Pro and the iPhone 16 Pro side by side. This is 6.1 inches. This is 6.3 inches. If you're looking at the phone side by side, it doesn't seem dramatic at first glance. Like, let's say if you're looking at like web pages or videos or photos, I think you'll appreciate a little bit of extra real estate, but it's not a dramatic difference. But there is a difference in terms of how heavy the device is and how easy it is to use with one hand. I think some people might be bummed that it's no longer a small phone. I would say if you're watching Netflix or YouTube, having that extra 0.2 inches might not seem like much, but I think it'll help, especially if you're on a long flight. Is there any difference between the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max besides size? Well, you can definitely see that, but there's two other main differences. One is that in our battery test, the iPhone 16 Pro Max lasted over 18 hours on a charge, which is among the longest that we've ever tested. The iPhone 16 Pro was still pretty good at over 14 hours, but there is a pretty big difference between the two. When it comes to the price and starting storage, with the iPhone 16 Pro, you're starting with 128 gigs of storage versus 256 for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. But even if you spend $100 more to get to 256, you're still gonna be $100 under the 16 Pro Max. Here's a pretty easy one. How do you use Audio Mix? So Audio Mix is a feature that is on all 4 new iPhones, and it's a feature that's in the Photos app. So what you want to do is when you're looking at a video, you're going to hit Edit, and then Audio Mix is going to be one of the features. And the idea is that you can cycle through different options in order to minimize background noise. So In Frame is one of them. There's also Cinematic if you want a little background noise in. There's also a studio option to make it sound like you're in front of the microphone in the studio itself. And then there's standard, so you get like whatever you're usually going to get when you're recording video. Based on our testing, it definitely did a good job removing background noise, but the resulting audio in some cases was a little bit tinny, so don't expect dramatically better results in terms of audio quality, just less noise. Shots at night or low light on iPhone 16 Pro are worse than the S24 Ultra and Pixel 9 Pro. Please answer this question. Well, actually, based on our testing so far, and we've done a number of photo face-offs, but I actually tested the S24 Ultra and the Pixel 9 Pro XL versus the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max in the reviews. And based on the few tests that I did in low light, which was indoors and outdoors, I think the iPhone performed a little bit better. There was one shot in front of a municipal building where you could actually make out more of the frame. There's like a better exposure both in the foreground and in the building itself. But the S24 Ultra did a better job of rendering the letters on the building. There was another shot that I took in a park that was almost completely dark. And I think the S24 Ultra and the Pixel 9 Pro did a good job in terms of like a very bright image, but the sky was so bright that you actually thought it was like daylight instead of nighttime. I think the iPhone's result was a little bit more natural. So I think when it comes to low light performance, you're gonna be really excited and pleased with what the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max have to offer. And if you're looking for more info on this, be sure to check out our photo shootouts with both the Galaxy S24 Ultra and the Pixel 9 Pro. All right, so, and it's okay to take digs at me, what makes you an expert? I've never even heard of you since iPhone 4. Well, first of all, iPhone 4 was a long time ago, but I've actually been covering smartphones before the original iPhone, and I covered the original iPhone launch for Laptop Mag. In fact, I worked for a magazine called Mobile Computing for Solutions in Life, which just rolls off the tongue. So we were covering the very first cell phones, like period, at the time, and the first that came with Bluetooth. So I've followed the evolution of smartphones from Windows Mobile to iOS and beyond. So I'm definitely an expert. Suspiciously, the iPhone 16 Plus battery and test is absent. I haven't found a channel nor site doing a battery test with the iPhone 16 Plus. Did Apple send out an NDA to exclude the 16 Plus testing so people don't realize they downsized the battery? Well, first off, they actually increased the battery size across the board, and you can see that on tomsguide.com. But the other thing that you need to know is that the battery test results were actually quite good. On the Tom's Guide battery test, the iPhone 16 Plus lasted about 16.5 hours on average. Now, the iPhone 16 Pro Max was even better at over 18 hours. And just so you know, compared to the iPhone 15 Plus from last year, it's a jump of about 2 hours. Were there any issues of battery overheating or phone getting hot during trials? So we actually tested like heat and heat dissipation in a couple of different ways. One was in the 3D Mark stress test, which lasts for about 20 minutes, and then it gives you a so-called stability score. On the iPhone 16 Pro, it was really interesting. That one got in like the 60% range, which is not great, whereas the iPhone 16 Pro Max got in the 80% range. So my theory is that because there's more space for heat dissipation and there's more thermal headroom for it to get rid of heat. To test the heat on the iPhone 16 Pro by itself, we actually put it up against the iPhone 15 Pro and then ran the same 3D Mark stress test for about 20 minutes, then measured the temperature on the back of the phone. And this device got to about 111 degrees, which was a few degrees hotter than the iPhone 15 Pro. So I would say that Apple's claims about like a better redesign on the inside are not really coming to fruition so far, but I wouldn't say that it's overheating. When it comes to everyday use, I would say like if you're playing an intense game for maybe 30 minutes or longer, you're gonna notice the phone start to heat up. But in general use, especially when using the camera, which can sometimes heat up the phone, I didn't get any overheating on my end. And finally, we're on, did you choose the Max or the regular one? You could probably tell in my review video that I was somewhat torn between the two phones. Like if I was gonna buy one with my own money, I would probably get the 16 Pro Max because you get the longer battery life and the larger display. I like to be able to watch videos on planes, for example, so I would probably get it for that reason. And I need the extra endurance when I'm at tech events, whether it's the Apple event or CES. But I think for a lot of people, the regular iPhone 16 Pro will be good enough because you're still getting the same tetraprism zoom lens, the same processor, the same performance, and I think a little less battery life. So it really comes down to what you prioritize. And I think it's a lot easier to use in one hand, which I think for a lot of people is probably the most important thing. But before you choose between the Pro Max and the Pro, I just want to say, based on a review, we're literally saying that the regular iPhone 16 and Plus are pro enough this year because you are getting Apple Intelligence, an A18 chip, even though it's not the Pro. The battery life has improved. What you're really missing is the telephoto zoom and the larger displays. But again, I'm not sure everyone wants a bigger screen. All right, guys, hopefully that was helpful. We wanted to answer all of your questions about the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro series. If you have any additional questions, make sure you drop them right here in the comments. And keep your eye out for Kate answering all of your questions around the Apple Watch Series 10. I'm Mark Spoonauer for Tom's Guide, and be sure to follow us on all of our social channels @Tom's Guide.